Welcome to the OBR streaming network. This is a brand new edition of The React. My name is Brad Ward. The man next to me is the always fantastic Pete Smith. Good to see you here tonight, filing in to join us. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe on your way in or out as we push towards 10,000 subscribers. So we appreciate it. If you take a second and make sure those buttons work down there. Just give them a little taparoo. July 21st, Monday night, we will be having our training camp kickoff special here on the network. So join us then as the staff will get together and we'll talk about training camp kicking off, beginning, all of the good stuff that comes with all of that. As the boys will be back in town and everything will be in full swing the following day. What's going on, Pete? How are you, sir?
Doing all right. 10 days from rookies reporting. Yeah. So we're getting close to ramping up and actually getting to do stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait. There's a lot of nonsense out there in the news right now. Deshaun Watson got married. Was on a boat.
Sure was.
Cool video there. I was just looking at this, Pete, and I wanted to ask your opinion on it. The NFL.com ranked the 32 running backs. Did you see this?
I have not.
32 running back ones. And they have Jerome Ford as the Browns running back 1 at 30th.
I mean, look, we all know, or I should say it's a pretty safe bet that Quinshon Judkins is going to end up running back 1. He's the overwhelming favorite. For the sake of the list, if you want to put somebody on there that has a track record, so be it. I would argue that perhaps that is actually an argument that people should sort of give Jerome Ford a little bit of a break. He's not like this terrible running back that people make him out to be. He is feast or famine in terms of consistency, but he does have explosive playmaking ability. And the worst thing Jerome Ford ever did was he just isn't Nick Chubb.
Right. I was just comparing it to they've got Omarion Hampton at 13. They've got Genty at 17. They've got R.J. Harvey in front of him.
Really?
At 24.
R.J. Harvey is the one that I'm very interested to watch. R.J. Harvey fascinates me because the Broncos take him in round 2. He is 5'8", 205 pounds, and he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson is 5'8", 200 pounds. The Browns took him in round 4. And he's not even 20. If he's 21, he just turned 21. That's one of those things. And we'll see. Sean Payton's a smart guy, but that's one of those things I sit there and go, you're sure that's really the route you wanted to go with that? But they're apparently all about it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Interesting. Javonte Williams, ranked 32nd for the Cowboys. Chase Brown, 31st. Then Jerome Ford, then Jaylen Warren at 29.
I'd put Chase Brown over Jaylen Warren.
Really?
I like Jaylen Warren quite a bit. The issue, and Jaylen Warren has a habit of killing the Browns too. But down to down consistency, down to down guy who scares me. Chase Brown's pretty good. Was one of those annoying players that the Bengals picked late in the draft. Super gifted athlete, has allowed that. I mean, Joe Mixon was a terrific back, and obviously they traded him for financial considerations, but I don't think they lost a whole lot by going to Chase Brown. I think they're pretty well situated there. I think the guys behind him are question marks. They didn't get a whole lot out of the guy they signed to was former Houston Texans running back or whatever. I like Chase Brown better than some of the other options there. I think he's got more to give than Jaylen Warren does, and I think Jaylen Warren is an interesting player.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see how they deploy Warren. How do you think Caleb Johnson translates to their offense and what they? I mean, he's probably going to get a lot of touches, you would think, right?
One of the things I'm very curious to see how it works, because Caleb Johnson, there are a lot of people who really liked him for the Browns, and because he was a zone guy, and they're sitting there going, "Oh man, the Browns are going back to wide zone. Caleb Johnson's going to be a great fit for that." But the Browns want to be certainly like the wide zone and want to get back to it and want to run zone stuff, but they also want to run gap stuff and be able to do that. The Steelers seemingly have been more of a gap team as of late. Are they going to make an effort to sort of move to what Caleb Johnson's strengths are, or are they projecting that he's just going to be able to fit what they want to do? I know Mike Tomlin loves the size. He likes not just that he's big, that he plays like a big back with the physicality, which is, there were people who liked him as potentially the second best running back in the draft. Most people had him somewhere in the 3rd to 4 range, but all things considered, I think the Steelers got him a pretty good value. But it's one of those things I'm very curious to see how it works out. Just from a Jaylen Warren to Caleb Johnson like contrast, I like it. I'm just very curious to see what their running game's going to look like. They've got a bunch of these pieces on the offensive line that have to prove themselves. They have Fatanu, who missed his whole rookie year, coming back, who's going to try to start at right tackle. They've got the left tackle, who was god-awful, Broderick Jones, who was god-awful last year in pass protection. They really like their center. They had some, they have some talent at guard. Can they get those pieces to work together? Because I think that piece for the Steelers is going to be critical if Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good season. They cannot, as currently constituted, just sit back there and drop back 40 times and expect to be successful. They cannot be a one-dimensional offense. And I'll be curious to see if teams basically try to do that as much as possible. Now, the Steelers are seemingly aware of that. Obviously, they're in a similar situation to the Browns, where wide receiver is a big question mark. So they leaned the other way and got Arthur Smith collected 35 tight ends. Now, that could work out. At the very least, it should make them a more capable running team if they just put all those big bodies out. I mean, Darnell Washington's basically a tackle anyway. Pat Freiermuth's a very good player, has not found the right quarterback fit for him with the Steelers. And then, Jonnu Smith is – I don't think Jonnu Smith is a game changer necessarily, but as a third tight end, as a guy you can sort of move around and play around with, I think he's he could be a good player there. Now, can that marriage sort of work there? That's the big question. But again, I think they have to be able to run the ball effectively, or they are going to run into some serious problems.
Yeah, definitely. Let me get your opinion on one other team that I'm just interested in while we're talking about this before we get to our first video. What do you make of what the Cowboys have done with Pickens and, CD and Dak? What do you make of what they're going to be this year? Just the same old Cowboys, or do you expect them to be good?
Well, I mean, they have a habit of going 12-4. Yeah. Obviously, this last year was sort of a disaster for them. The Cowboys, they had to get somebody else to play wide receiver and help out, because, one of the things that everybody expected the Browns to do, or not the Browns, the Cowboys to do, was to potentially take a running back super early. And instead of taking a running back super early, I don't think they drafted one at all. Not only that, they let their running back walk in free agency. So a team that has invested so much in their offensive line, they seem to have not done themselves any real service in terms of amplifying the running game, sort of helping Dak Prescott from that standpoint. They have some outstanding things to deal with on defense, notably Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And they've lost pieces on defense, not the least of which was Dan Quinn. It just seemed, one, Jerry Jones is sort of like weirdly cheap lately in terms of how he's operating the team.
Strange.
But you've put so much. Obviously you're paying Dak Prescott a ton of money, and it just feels like the Cowboys are basically telling him, "We're not going to give you any extra help. You're gonna make it work, and that's gonna justify the contract." And yes, George Pickens can help them. George Pickens can be great for them, save for the 4 games he loses his mind. So for 13 games, he's going to be really good until he pouts or whatever. But that combination of those guys could be deadly. And if they can get something out of a Jalen Tolbert or the guy they traded from Carolina last year, something else, they can be interesting. But I don't know that they're going to play enough defense. We shall see. I mean, they draft well. I give them they're one of the best drafting teams in the league. They just do so many other things poorly. It just feels like they are putting so much on their the quarterback and those receivers. I think they're going to run into problems. I mean, just look at the division. The best thing the Giants have is pass rush. They have one of the best nose tackles in football. They have 3 edge rushers who they're going to use at the same time. That is going to be an issue for them if they can get pressure on Dak Prescott. The Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, they have to prove that they can get past losing 2 of their best pass rushers, but they've reloaded. They're going to be a problem. Washington's sort of the one where you're sitting there going, I don't know what they have that's going to be able to really deal with them. But Dallas has, Dallas's division is sort of geared up with the things that are going to cause them the most problems. And I think Dallas stands at a major disadvantage against Philadelphia. And then the Giants stink. Let's be clear. But I do wonder, not unlike how they dismantled the Browns, that they have something that just is such a competitive advantage that it gives them a puncher's chance in a game they shouldn't be able to win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. It'll be an interesting division for sure. All right. So I want to start tonight with Mina Kimes, and she's doing her AFC North preview. I got it keyed up to the Browns portion of this. It's rather interesting as they go through it. I don't know who is with her here. You'll have to tell me who this is. If you know.
Like 7 or 8 drop back non-play action pass attempts. That is the vision for what.
Do you know who that fella is?
He's what's his face from The Ringer?
Okay.
Or maybe Yahoo at this point. Robert Mays. It's Robert Mays.
There you go. All right. Thank you. All right. So he does a pretty good job here, I think, with the Browns stuff. And so I wanted to get these two on here talking about what they see this season. Here we go.
It is going to be breathlessly followed all summer come July. At the moment, you got Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco. I probably should start. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if we should start with that. I mean, it's so hard to even talk about. Like, I think that the Browns would argue that the offense is going to be pretty similar regardless of who's playing. I think is interesting, right? Because with a lot of these quarterbacks, we just talked about like Aaron Rodgers. Like, what should Aaron Rodgers Steelers offense be like? I don't want to say the Browns are quarterback agnostic because God knows that they have changed their offense over the last few years depending on who is playing. But I do think that everything else they've done this offseason and in the draft suggests they have a pretty specific vision for what they want the offense, Kevin Stefanski's offense, to look like. And this isn't necessarily going to determine who's going to get the job or who's going to play the most starts for them. But I almost feel like that vision for the offense is more important than who ends up playing more quarterback for them. Does that make sense?
Yes, because you asked me what the perfect vision for the Steelers offense was, and I said it was Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball 22 times a game. The perfect vision for the Browns offense is whoever plays quarterback throwing the ball like 14 times a game. Remember those first 2 games last year for the Saints with Derek Carr and Clint Kubiak, and how Derek Carr in those 2 games combined had like 7 or 8 drop back non-play action pass attempts? That is the vision for what the 2025 Cleveland Browns should look like, no matter who ends up playing quarterback for them.
I read an interview with Joel Petonio, I think in The Athletic, where he like talked about the run game. Because I read a lot of Browns coverage to try to see if like there was any insight into the quarterback situation, any little glimmers of little clues perhaps. And I didn't learn anything. However, he talked at length in this interview about the run game and what he thought it would look like and how they were going to go back to more of the like Stefanski ball control, run the ball, play action, wide zone with a little bit of power mixed in. He was like, this feels like 2020-21 with outside zone and power mixed in. This is Joel Petonio talking. And we will win with ball control. So, always good when you're, you got that pretty strong idea, I suppose, of what it will look like. But, a lot of that has to do with the players they have. It's an interesting offensive line, interesting insofar as like it's guys who have been in the building who have been coming off of either bad years or injuries in a lot of ways. It's a pretty lackluster receiver group. Judy, Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson, who recently informed the world that he opted not to play in Baltimore Ravens game because it was 41 degrees. Honestly, don't judge him for that. I can. That's how David and Joe.
I'm not sure you would do well in 41 degrees at this point in your life.
Harold Fannin, who was a very interesting draft pick at tight end, who's more of like a H-back type. And then they drafted a bunch of running backs. So in addition to Jerome Ford and they have Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. So like, we know what this offense wants to look like. Of the 4 quarterbacks I mentioned, is there anyone you think is a good fit for that offense?
I mean, I think that we've seen Joe Flacco play in some version of that offense. Yeah. When you go back and you think about the 2023 Browns and what they look like with Joe Flacco compared to what they look like with Deshaun Watson, I do think there's a path for it there. I think the Browns are walking into this hoping that one of the rookies makes it close enough as part of this competition that they can give that guy a shot, right? Like I think the ideal version for the Browns quarterback room was always going to be something like the 2012 Seahawks looked like, where you bring in a free agent of some kind. You have a third guy in there, and then you draft somebody in the middle rounds and you hope that guy wins the job because obviously that's going to give you the highest upside over like a multi-year period. So the idea I think always was to go into the draft, find a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, put him in a room with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, have that guy win the job if it was even close. They've complicated that by adding 2 rookies, neither of whom is probably going to get enough reps to forcibly win the job in the way that they would if there was only one guy. So there's just so many layers of complication here. I think I want to see one of the rookies do it just because I find it much, much more interesting than trying to watch 47-year-old Joe Flacco limp to the finish line with this sporting cast.
Yeah, I don't want to watch.
All right. So what I think they actually want, Pete, is they want Kenny Pickett to win this job. I feel like that's the company line right now, is they want Kenny Pickett to be good enough to be able to hand him the job. And if he's not, then they'll go to Joe Flacco. I don't think there's much of a chance that a rookie starts week 1.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, not for the reasons that Robert Mays cited, though I appreciate his honesty in saying that the rookie's more interesting because it's, again, this is the national perspective. You always want to see something new and interesting. I no shade. I mean, that's at least he's saying that part out loud and not pretending like the Browns have to do this because they got to find out and all this other crap. He's saying it straight out. It's more interesting for him. Sure. I'm fine with it. Again, I think the rep problem is I think they have a creative way to deal with it, whether or not that's going to yield results or not. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I understand. Look, the Browns have said every positive thing they can about Kenny Pickett. So from that point, I agree with you. Ultimately, I think the Browns wanted to facilitate a setup where any of those three younger quarterbacks could potentially come in, win the job, and make it happen. Whether one of them is going to be able to do that or not, I question. I'm largely dubious, but that is the challenge for the Browns. They create a situation where somebody could be, if somebody is good enough, somebody has the talent and puts it together and can do the Russell Wilson thing, which is what they allude to without saying it. Great. But the bottom line is the Browns' primary goal, win football games, straight up. And people can dress it up however they want. Well, we got to figure out what Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders and Kenny Pickett can all do. Bullshit. They need to win football games. Like that is what that locker room needs. That is what the coaching staff needs. That's what the front office needs. They need to win football games. And if Joe Flacco is going to help you win football games, if Joe Flacco is going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals week 1, Joe Flacco is going to play. That's still who I expect at this point. Again, I can't state this enough. I'm dispassionate as hell as far as I don't really have a rooting interest other than I hope one of the three younger quarterbacks can suddenly like surge and be good enough to eventually win the job. That would be the best case scenario for the Browns. But that part I think will take care of itself in terms of how they set it up. Mina Kimes goes to Joel Bitonio, and I think that is ultimately what they would rather do. I don't know that I think they'd like to certainly run a whole lot of play action passing. Undoubtedly. I mean, that was Kevin Stefanski's bread and butter in 2020 with Baker Mayfield. If it's Joe Flacco, I don't think it's as important because he's confident enough and understands what he's looking at enough to be able to read the defense and make the right decisions. That gets into something we've talked about before, which is the play calling operations needs to be more efficient, that whoever's in at quarterback gets the line faster, can see what the defense is doing. They can shift, they can change plays, they can do all the things that give that quarterback the best possible ability to have the offense in the right position and then execute based off that. That would be great. I think it's entirely fair to question the wide receivers, even though I think Jerry Jeudy, like going back and looking at Jerry Jeudy, like over the course of the year, he was better than I thought he was. Like he was good. And, once they got rid of Deshaun Watson, save for like the Jacksonville game where, we saw some Jerry Jeudy make some really nice plays. Like Jerry Jeudy was really good for a whole lot of that season. And, we'll see what happens. But, if that carries over, I think it's going to continue to be really good. David Njoku, just stay off his damn legs, and he should be able to be effective. Cedric Tillman, we'll see. I mean, there's the run he had was impressive, but it's short. I'm excited about Harold Finn. I have my own theory on how Dylan Sampson could be a weapon beyond simply being a running back. And then, Quinshon Judkins, a whole lot of Quinshon Judkins, potentially a whole lot of Jerome Ford. If they can do that, then that's going to lead into what this team needs to be, which is don't screw it up on offense and put your defense in a bad position because your defense looks like it could be really, really good. And be a team that opponents hate playing on a weekly basis because it could be a slog. They're going to get tired of getting punched in the mouth, and knowing that they're going to come out bruised and battered. Hopefully that is the mentality that this team sort of develops. And if they can do that, then they're at least interesting. And we can, are they going to be good it's going to be tough. Are they going to be a team that consistently competes and is interesting, and we're sort of seeing a vision of where this thing can go, and we're sitting here talking about, okay, maybe the quarterback's not on the roster, maybe they still have to draft it. Yes, they need more weapons. Yes, they need to, add more to the offensive line in the next year, but like with a defense that looks good, maybe there's some tweaks there that still need to be made, like corner potentially could be an issue that they have to address. You could see where this goes, and you can see them competing quickly if they can get the quarterback position correct.
Watch that either. Just now, and I don't want to watch Kenny Pickett. Sorry. So for me, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm rooting for one of the two young guys to get most. I think likely Joe Flacco probably starts the season, but at some point they make a transition after like a interception game or something. About those two young quarterbacks and sort of whether they fit in the type of offense we've been talking about a little bit. You mentioned the 2012 Seahawks. I feel like I've seen Dylan Gabriel comp to Russell Wilson a little bit. I don't know if it was by the Browns or the media. So,
you buying that comp?
Well, no, but Russell Wilson was short. Russell Wilson was a good processor. Russell Wilson did a lot of things correctly. I get it from that standpoint. Russell Wilson was also like muscled up tank of a quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel just simply isn't. That's not who I've the guy I've sort of looked at and thought the vision for Dylan Gabriel was left-handed Case Keenum, and Case Keenum, largely a backup, did have a nice run with the Vikings at one point and got them to the playoffs. I don't remember how far they went. They may have gone to the divisional round or whatever. Certainly wasn't a franchise guy by any stretch. That's sort of who I think the Browns see, and particularly Kevin Stefanski, because he would know Case Keenum. So as far as I know, he's never really dealt with Russell Wilson other than did he say he coached him at the Senior Bowl the one year or whatever? Maybe he's dealt with him in some capacity, but he knows Case Keenum, and I suspect that is where he sits there and goes, I've seen this work. He's got a lot of those qualities or better or whatever he thinks in terms of that. But that's who I come out with and go, okay, I can at least see that. That's, when you make that pick, and I hate it initially, I still don't love it, but I can at least look at it and go, okay, I understand why Kevin Stefanski would want to make this pick.
But Keenum was bigger.
Was he?
Isn't he a normal sized quarterback?
Normal sized.
Yeah.
Normal sized quarterback. You can email Barry and cancel Brad at any point. Yes, he was 6'1", listed. Yeah. Let's see what he actually was.
You're gonna cancel me for saying normal sized quarterback? That's about a normal sized quarterback.
6'8", 5'8", 6 foot 5'8", 208 pounds. So yes, he's a little bit bigger, but that's still the guy I'm sort of reminded by now. Case Keenum was a heck of an athlete in short area quickness. God, I missed the days where we actually got athletic testing from quarterbacks. But yeah, that's why I'm reminded of. But yes, the height is certainly different. We're going to see how much that's a factor. But no, I don't believe the Browns ever made a comp to Russell Wilson. I think there was mention of it in the media, but I don't think that is anything the Browns mentioned.
Yeah, extra medium. All right, here we go.
Oh, I actually liked Dylan Gabriel. I ended up watching him. Obviously, we all did because he was Oregon a fair amount. I think there's a perfectly realistic path to where he actually can, I wouldn't say start in the NFL, but I thought of him as maybe in a good situation, he could produce, and he could certainly be like a high-end back. That's how I felt about him. He is, I think, pretty accurate. I think he is smart. I think he has one similarity to Russ, which is that despite being very small, He is willing to throw over the middle of the field. Oh, sorry, not similar to Russ. I meant to say difference. But the other difference, though, is that Russ was a significantly better athlete in 2012 and had a much better arm, in my belief. I don't think Gabriel's arm is bad. I actually think it's fine. But Russ's athleticism and his arm strength for years allowed him to compensate for the problems created by his height. And I just don't see that with Gabriel personally.
It's a worthwhile thing to bring up.
That's pretty fair, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I think she's 100% right. Russell Wilson has a stronger arm. For when Russell Wilson was thought of being a guy headed to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he scrambled and refused to get hit. He was the most infuriating quarterback for defenses because he would get as far as he could, slide, go untouched, and move on to the next play. Drive people crazy doing that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Looked at Dylan Gabriel, the way that I understand it is that they thought the height was the only knock against him. And they were hoping that because of that, if that was the only thing, if it was that he was a little bit short, is he going to go later than he should because teams are going to be scared off by that? And so I think there's a lot of fans of Dylan Gabriel's in that building. And I think that if in any other scenario, I think that we would just be talking about Dylan Gabriel winning that job because he has a clear path to it. The Shedeur Sanders thing just really complicates all of this. And this is sort of my problem with the Browns every once in a while is that when you look at what they do, I think that it's so based on percentages and odds and like, all right.
Oh, let's just collect quarterbacks and
that's exactly right. And I think the Kenny Pickett part of this is similar to that, where you're looking at Kenny Pickett and you say, all right, think about where Kenny Pickett has been his entire life. He was with Matt Canada in Pittsburgh, he had absolutely no shot. He goes to Philly for a year, doesn't really play. He's never been in even a decent situation for more than a handful or two stopgap starts. Like we can get more out of a first round pick than he's shown over the course of his career. That's fine. But if these incremental wins on these small bets, I think sometimes you lose sight of the bigger picture. And I think that's kind of what has happened with this whole thing, where individually I can support all of the decisions they made to add these people to the room. But when you look at the room overall, I think it becomes a barrier to figuring out the quarterback situation in a positive way.
The other thing that complicates.
Do you agree with them?
No, on that I don't. I think the Browns went unorthodox in the fact that they collected all these quarterbacks and it looks goofy and you sit there and you go, how are they going to get the reps? And that is a valid question. The Browns have to prove that. I think what we've seen is a preview of how it can work. That has to carry over into training camp and it has to produce some results. But we endlessly talk about how quarterback is the most important position in not only this sport, in any sport. If you don't have one, you should be doing everything you can to get that position. And in this case, the Browns took 3 swings for the cost of a 5th-round pick, another 5th-round pick, and a 3rd-round pick. And if all of them fail, or maybe you get a backup out of one of them, okay. Like if you get one of these guys right, it will be worth more than those assets combined by far.
Yeah. I guess he's presenting that but they have one too many guys there, and it's a barrier to them getting it right. So you're saying like if they come out and handle it like they've kind of shown that they're going to handle it, that they have a good enough plan to figure it out anyways.
Well, again, this is one of those things where, if one of these guys is great, everybody's going to praise the Browns and say, man, this was what an approach. This was inspired.
Yeah.
Now, if none of these guys can play, then there's going to be people who question, well, is it because they had too many guys? Is it because of, the one guy didn't get enough reps or any of these other things? Like there is a built-in means to then blame the organization and the coaching staff because they went with an unorthodox approach, even if they may have come up with a way to get as much in terms of experience and reps as possible in a single training camp. So it allows you to sort of find your criticism. Like G. Bush is built for this. This is G. Bush's lane right here. He will find the criticism he wants if this doesn't work out and just hone in on it. But like, again, to me, we're sitting here and the Deshaun Watson thing was a complete disaster and a debacle, and you have to get this right. So take as many swings as you can. Like I've said this all along, like the best case scenario for the Browns is somehow, and this is an unlikely scenario. Those three young quarterbacks are so good that Joe Flacco becomes the expendable option and you just keep the three quarterbacks and then it solves itself. I don't think that's going to happen, but like there is value in taking as many swings as possible because you can't get it right if they aren't in the building. And then two, even if you get all these wrong and you're forced to then pick a quarterback next year, I'm hoping that from an organizational standpoint, coaching standpoint, all these other things, that there's going to be value in the experience from the coaching staff in how to then take the guy they take, and that becomes beneficial for them in terms of getting it right, in terms of that development. And those are types of things where, you know, we're not going to find out until, you know, maybe a year or 5 years down the road where they sit there and go, you know,
in retrospect,
we went with this experiment and we did this and it really helped. We thought what we really found was it was beneficial in terms of helping us develop Drew Alar or Fernando Mendoza or whoever the hell it is. That part you don't know. But like, again, if Shedeur Sanders is the guy, for example, he was the last guy you brought in. Like he would be the guy you're sitting there going, why did we bring in this guy? And if it works, you're going to be thrilled. If Kenny Pickett can turn into the Sam Darnold of this year, again, I don't think that's going to happen, but if he can do it, you look smart because even if you don't want to keep him and he signs somewhere else and you get compensatory value or trade him or whatever, great. Kevin Stefanski, you know, the part of what I sort of have to remind myself is like last year was such a shit show that we like forget Kevin Stefanski can coach and he can coach quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson was so bad and just such a train wreck that like you forget that Kevin Stefanski has largely had a reputation of being able to get good play out of quarterbacks. I mean, PJ Walker and DTR combined for 3 game-winning drives in one season. Joe Flacco, you know, we joke and go come off the couch and all this stuff. It's like Joe Flacco had a uniquely, you know, I think some of his greatness in that run has been overstated, but like compared to where he's been, going back to, you know, whether it's the Jets, the Colts, going back to when he was with the Broncos, like this is clearly the best he's been. Baker Mayfield, he's still trying to like. Baker Mayfield has obviously become a success in the NFL, but he's still trying to sort of recapture the magic he had in 2020, the second half of that season, in terms of just raw efficiency and just dominance at the quarterback position. Jacoby Brissett had at worst tied for his best ever performance as a quarterback. So like in that sense, Kevin Stefanski saying, screw it, put it on me. And he's obviously got Bill Musgrave and Tommy Reese to sort of lighten the load a little bit and sort of help out and sort of being how they can sort of divvy up responsibilities and everything else. But like we all went to the draft saying, Kevin Stefanski, go pick your guy and figure it out. So he picked 3 guys. I'm happy to let him do it. Like, so I understand all the criticisms. If it doesn't work, people will criticize. There are people who probably want to fire him and say, you know, we don't want to mess around with him getting the next quarterback. But that is the position where you cannot take enough swings. That is one of the areas where I don't, you know, Sam Monson and the Check Mike guys, like I never wanted to take Shedeur Sanders second overall, but I can at least appreciate the mindset where like you're sitting there going, until we get this right, so much of this other stuff doesn't matter. So like, you didn't have to. You didn't take him second overall. You didn't take him 33rd overall. You took him 144th overall. You took Dylan Gabriel 94th overall or whatever it was. You know, so from a process standpoint, I appreciate the approach. I think it's the exact way to handle this. And the Browns are saying, put it on us to figure this out and get it right. And maybe, you know, there's always the possibility that they draft a kid and that one of these other guys flourish later. Who knows? But like, get as many of these guys as you can get, coach them up, and until you get it right, this is what you have to do. So like, because what one of the conversations leading up to the draft was take Shedeur or whoever at 2, and if he can't play, go right back in the next year and take a first-round pick, even though that's not realistic at all. But like, that was a thought process. So how do you then complain that the Browns didn't use the first-round pick? Instead, they made an extra first-round pick and got Mason Graham and got 3 quarterbacks. Like, this is how it should work. I get it. It's not pretty. I get it. It's not like, again, it's unorthodox. But like, that's the position they got to figure out. And Kevin Stefanski's saying, put it on me. I'll get it right.
Yeah, and he has to prove that too, right? So, and the answer may not be in these 3. So, that could be an outcome as well that has nothing to do with him. But
yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get Jaden Daniels, which is what we all want, it's probably not going to be in one of these 3.
Right.
But that is not what you need to be effective this season either. If you can get you don't even need to be Sam Darnold. Get you for most of the year. Like you got, if you get Joe Flacco in 2023 during that run, you're going to take it. If you get Jacoby Brissett in 2022, you would take it. Like that, it's not that high of a bar to get them to where in Jacoby Brissett's year, they went 7-10. I think most people would sort of sign up for that and not think twice about it. If you could, before we go into the season, and you go, we're going to go 7-10. Now there would be somebody, Anthony Lyman would chime in and go, well, now we're out of position to take a quarterback. I also understand that point, but I got 2 first-round picks. I got to win football games, and the quarterback situation I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Gates, is Gabriel and Sanders? I think like both make sense in the offense. So I guess that complicates it. Pardon me. It complicates the quarterback competition aspect of it. But I think like you could argue both of them. This is the right kind of offense for both of those quarterbacks, in my opinion. And they have some similar traits. Like they're both accurate. I pulled this because I was curious. Gabriel and Sanders had the 2nd and 5th highest catchable ball rate in football. Now that's skewed a little bit by screens and wide open guys and all of that, but it's what it looked like. Like they're both really accurate. I think they're both tough. I think that they, I based on what we saw in college, you could see either of them winning, I guess is what I'm saying. The situation, though, itself, I think is something that we probably have to discuss because, like you said, the goal here is obviously to be a run-first team, like Joel Bitonio said. They're going to, use a lot of 2 tight end sets. I don't know how Fannin is going to be deployed. It'll be interesting. But it's a pretty shaky group of pass catchers. Judy, to his credit, in the second half of last season, actually ranked 3rd league-wide in yards per game, despite
really
not
good.
like having a crazy dominant target share. You remember some of the games with Jameis where he just like went crazy. But Tillman, Deontay, Johnson, I don't know. I really don't know who if they're in 12 personnel, who are they? I really don't know how the rest of the group shakes out.
I don't mind the combination of Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy because I do think they have complementary skill sets, right?
That's
If
true.
Jerry Jeudy is going to be your like vertical kind of slot player where, you can use him as that vertical stretch guy, Tillman is a nice big bodied X receiver who I do think is viable over the middle of the field. The last thing I'll say about the quarterback part of this is that I think I agree with you when it comes to the skill sets. I think that Dylan Gabriel is going to have a pretty big lead going into this on the mental side of things. And I think that could go a long way, even if when you think about how they throw the ball, accuracy being a strength, they're similar sorts of players. I do think Dylan Gabriel has a little bit of a leg up when it comes to how mature he is in his understanding of football, the decision-making, all of that. And so I think if it comes down to it, that's why I would give him a little bit of the edge. And if he can just play point guard within this offense, if it's going to be play action heavy, and the other part of it is the screen game. When you think back to when this offense was at its best, and that's kind of what I'm so fascinated in with Harold Fannin as being part of this, like him with the ball in his hands, he's such a weird, funky player. And I think we've seen Kevin Stefanski be really successful at deploying these kind of weird, funky tight ends as after the catch players. So I think there's a world where the passing game is kind of strange and they manufacture stuff out of it and it does work. To me, it comes down to the offensive line and whether they can have a bounce back year. Then you look at what they've tried to do, especially last year, even 2 years ago, it's a spread offense. It's a spread offense the entire time with Deshaun Watson, and they're trying to live in these two different worlds where they're trying to meld the Bill Callahan, Kevin Stefanski world with the Deshaun Watson world, and it never worked. And then last year, they move on from Bill, and they go Bill moves on from them, and they go even further into the Deshaun Watson world, where you have a run game that's a lot more mid-zone. And then if you look at the construction of the coaching staff, they actually brought over the assistant offensive line coach from the Eagles to be the assistant offensive line coach last year. And so you have a lot of this like mid-zone gun run game. And that's never what the Browns were at their best. Like Joe Bitonio said, it was all outside zone and power stuff. And so I think that there's a version of this team where the offensive line performs significantly better this year because you're putting them back in a scheme where they're comfortable, let alone how comfortable the play caller is with it. And so if that can be the engine of it, and then you can do the play action screen game stuff off of it, I do think the receivers are good enough to survive in an offense like that. But if you don't have the line in the run game, then none of the rest of this really matters.
I mean,
like a lot of what he said there, all of that checks out as far as, trying to meld Callahan with the spread, right? And then going even further into Watson, right? And then now getting back to what, I've said multiple times that, and I'm sure you have too, the personnel didn't match what they were trying to accomplish along the offensive line, along with injuries and everything else, right? But you were asking guys that were brought here to play in the wide zone scheme to do different things, right? You probably had to change personnel along that offensive line if you were going to stick with that kind of a run game that you had pivoted to last season, right? But that now that you're going back, you hope that despite the age, right, they can regain some comfort in the scheme and get kind of back to what they were best at. And that's a hope, right? Because they are older, a lot of them.
I mean, so much for them is this training camp is so critical, is getting them to be physically ready to endure the rigors of the season. Obviously, last year with the tackle injuries, they were limited in what they could do. And then you have Joe Bitonio, who's, you're not going to try to beat him up. And even Wyatt Teller to a certain extent, especially when you're missing a bunch of guys, they're going to have to – I don't want to say they're not going to have Veterans Days off because they will, but I think this is going to be a more rigorous camp for those guys in terms of hopefully staying healthy, but also just developing the toughness to be able to do those things and succeed and be able to enable the running game to be successful. The thing that Robert Mays brings up, which I find interesting and agree with, but I think he's short-sighted a little bit, not because he's – well, let me just explain. The Browns for years have been doing this thing where David Njoku has been their screen guy.
Yes.
A lot of these manufactured touches to David Njoku, and it's been great. I agree 100% that David Njoku could be a tremendous decoy to then allow a guy like Harold Fannin to do that. However, I would add that this is one of those things I think Dylan Sampson is going to do for this team. Okay. I think he's going to be one of the options that they use. So much with Fannin and Sampson is what they can handle. You take two kids who are 20 and you're trying to get them into the NFL and handle the mental and physical rigors. And obviously tight end is a huge challenge, the amount of things you're asked to do. But like Dylan Sampson, I think, and I have reason to believe that they're going to ask him to do things like line up in the slot and be able to shift to various different points. Because you take a guy
too.
Do what?
I think one of the things that he's gonna have to be able to do. Personally, I think he'll be great with the ball in his hands, but he has to be able to prove that he can pass block, and when they need him to.
I don't think they're ever going to ask him to pass block.
You don't think they're ever going to ask him to protect? Okay.
I will put the over-under at 50 pass protection reps for this year.
Okay.
I'm going to take the under. Because he's 5'8" and 200 pounds. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
I think what you end up with...
50 is a lot. I mean, if you're talking about protecting your quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I just think what they're going to ultimately do is it's always going to be Judkins or Ford back there.
That
and
makes sense.
And anytime Sampson's back there, he's going somewhere else. He's going out for a pass. He's shifting somewhere else. And that's ultimately why I think part of the point is with him is, you have Njoku and Fannin somewhere else, and all of a sudden it's a quick smokescreen to a guy like Sampson. And if he's only got to beat one guy, then he's a nightmare. I mean, he was the focal point for Tennessee's offense last year, in what was clearly the second best conference in college football. But nevertheless, Tennessee was a powerhouse program.
Yeah.
And this kid was carrying the thing. I mean, talk about Nico and the various other things Tennessee had. This was Dylan Sampson's offense. So, and if he can do it, then you're taking the number one player from Tennessee, and now you're saying he can be your fourth or fifth guy in the Browns offense. And you're sitting here and going, well, they've got Jerry Jeudy and they've got David Njoku, and we're hoping Cedric Tillman can do this. And God only knows what we're getting out of Deontay Johnson. So then you're sitting there and you're going, well, who's next? You've got people like Daniel Lafasi saying Jamari Thrash looks like somebody who's ready to, who's had a really good unpadded practice session. And maybe he's going to be a guy who takes a step forward. But if Fannin can do that, and then Sampson can do that, and those become 4 and 5, it will look weird because of the people you have. But you look at some of the guys who are thriving in space, they're Dylan Sampson size, but they're just wide. You just call them wide receivers. So
correct.
Get the ball to your athletes in space and let them make plays. And I think that could, and if I'm wrong, Kevin Stefanski can call me and we can hash it out and I can tell him what to do. But ultimately, if you can get a guy like Dylan Sampson out there, and let's say a Njoku block springs or Cedric Tillman springs him to the sideline where he's got one man to beat, I love that matchup all day. I want to create more problems for the defense to have to think about, and especially at the pre-snap motions and all these other things where if they're shifting from two back to empty to from empty to putting guys in the backfield, to create all these problems. And then hopefully that then creates one more way that Quinshon Judkins has, they create numbers, angles, and grass for him to succeed. You still got Jerry Jeudy, you still got David Njoku, and all of a sudden, I freely admit I'm throwing so many ifs at this thing, which is why I'm terrified of all of it. But nevertheless, you can sort of start to see there and go, okay, this is at least interesting. It doesn't solve the problem. I still want to ultimately, I still want to go get the kid. Was it Michael Lemon or whatever his name is from USC next year in the draft? I've already planned out. Mekhi Lemon, who can be a receiver, who's a talented receiver and would be your kick returner. So we'd solve that problem for you. But I love this idea of having different body types that just give defenses fits. There aren't a whole lot of guys, with tight ends, we talk about there aren't that many guys who can cover 6'4", 240 who can run, let alone having two. And there aren't a whole lot of guys that are necessarily really equipped to be able to deal with 5'8", 200 in space. So it's not, again, so much of what we're talking about, unorthodox. It's not how you draw it up. You'd rather have, three prototypical receivers and a tight end and all this other crap. The Browns don't have that, so we're gonna lean into what we do have and make these other things. See if they can work.
Last question about Sampson. Doesn't he project at some point in his career to be like your third down back?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's going to play running back. He's
going to
good
have to block at some point. Then, right?
We'll see. I still think more than likely, at best, he's going to be chip and release.
Yeah, that's all you're asking him to do, right?
okay, but I'm never gonna. There's not a world. Maybe he will prove me wrong and turn to Maurice Jones-Drew back there and suddenly cave in a guy in the backfield. I never see myself in a situation where I want him trying to, take on 250 pounds plus coming at him full speed and trying to stop that train. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
Check
Yeah.
the
I'm
lead,
just
fine,
saying
maybe. But ultimately, that's where I sit there and look at it and go, if he's in the backfield, assume he's leaving. And assume, and in a perfect world, he's good enough that by being out there, that there's a linebacker or a safety going, oh, crap, I've got to have my eyes on him. I got to find out where he's going. He's that threatening that it sort of solves itself in by giving them one more thing to think about. But right now, obviously, not only is he not proven that, but if he's in the backfield, you're sitting there going, oh, baby, let's go.
Yeah. Got it.
You're describing really does actually sound a lot like the 2012 Seahawks, the Russell Wilson rookie season. Like I know I expressed some skepticism about the Gabriel Wilson comp. I think the vision, like earmarking that season and the environment and Russ was able to flourish, and the way they approached the run game and the what you saw from the offensive line. Russ was under center. Like I think you could see that, like that. You could establish like the building blocks of something, even if maybe you decide to move on to a different quarterback next year. But it all falls apart if this offensive line plays like they did last year. And obviously they were dealing with injuries, but there were players who did play last year who were not good when they played. So it's just, you not only have to see guys get healthy, you have to see some players return a little bit more to how they looked a couple of years ago. And that's a pretty dicey bet. I like both these backs a lot. I'll finish by saying that. Judkins, Sampson, I think were both really fun picks that have they're very complementary in terms of like very different skill sets that they use on different concepts and different situations. And yeah, the Fannin thing I'm excited to watch. Tommy Reese, who's their offensive coordinator, was the tight ends coach last year.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think that I wouldn't be surprised if Fannin is like a slightly bigger part of the offense maybe than people expect.
He might have to be, based on everything else that they have.
Because of the other receivers. The defense.
All right. The comment about now I lost what I was going to say because you said that the thing with the Fannin. What was she saying?
Did she don't be surprised if he's a bigger part of the offense than?
No, yeah, I saw. I heard.
Yeah, it's just listen. He has all the things you want to be really successful. It's entirely a question of can he handle it, and if he can, and he can be productive. Again, I will continue to make this comparison. People are talking about Isaiah likely becoming a superstar this year. And I'm not here to argue that. I think he's a really good player. But his best season so far is like 450 yards receiving. It's just the element he brings causes so many problems for everybody else that he doesn't need to have an obscene amount of production to make the offense so much better. Harold Fannin can come out of this year. I'd almost say like with Donovan Peoples-Jones numbers from 2020. And I think that year Donovan Peoples-Jones had like 13 receptions, but they all felt impactful as his rookie year. And he had a whole bunch of yards and he had a couple of game-winning touchdowns. I like if Harold Fannin has 300 yards receiving and like 4 touchdowns, I think his impact could feel significantly bigger than that. Because whether it's David Njoku taking away pressure that opens him up, I just think there's going to be a way that there's going to be some point in this season where, again, if he can handle the mental aspect and the physical rigors of everything, which is a big ask. Tight ends, it is not easy to make the transition to the NFL. So that is my caution. But it would not shock me if at some point this season we get that vintage Bowling Green highlight where he has caught the ball. He is doing what he does, which is stopping, starting, spinning, doing all the weird shit that like coaches tell you not to do, but he's just so confident and he's not afraid. And guys bounce off of him that he has that big play where we're sitting here, and if he becomes like a big player that, you're going to be looking back 5 years, into the future, like I don't want what immediately jumps to my head is the Mark Bavaro and the Jeremy Shockey highlights from the Giants. The Mark Bavaro one is one of the most famous in football, and then Jeremy Shockey in the Hall of Fame game, which those sort of just stayed with him. I think at some point this year, Harold Fannin is going to have one of those plays that you just go, this is exactly why we drafted him. This is exactly what he was at Bowling Green. And yes, he was able to do it against Penn State. He was able to against Texas A&M. And we're going to figure out a way to get him to do that at least once this season. If you can do it more than once, you can do it a couple times, it's going to really open things up for this offense. But again, he's got to be able to prove it.
Yeah, he can be super exciting. And I think that, the ability to use both him and Njoku on the field at the same time, potentially, and Dylan and Judkins, however you want to, personnel it up, scheme it up. It gives you some more outs, right? It gives you some more creativity where you don't have to have 3 wide receivers on the field all the time, right? Like that are threats downfield.
You get the advantage you have, and one of the things that Kevin Stefanski's always liked being able to do in his offense is dictating how defenses can play you with their personnel.
Correct. Yeah.
That was obviously a big element in why he brought in 2 premium tight ends initially. He's trying to recreate that a little bit. They had some of that with Harrison Bryant a little bit, who, one of those players I wish the Browns still had. Wasn't a great player, but
everything.
Very useful. That you get to force them to play bigger personnel than they want. You get to force them to play in ways that they might not be comfortable. And then the same thing with the Dylan Sampson. He might force the opponent to play personnel that they're not comfortable with, especially if it looks like, 2 tight ends, Jerry Jeudy, and both running backs. Like, maybe you're going to have your 2 corners out there, but like everything else is going to be probably bigger personnel than you might want. And then can you take advantage of that? Yeah. That has been something that Kevin Stefanski's done really well at times in his career. I go back, the one that always jumps out to me is the Baltimore Ravens game where Lamar ended up beating them after his bathroom issue. But like from an offensive design standpoint, there were so many things because the Ravens had the Browns stalled out early in the game, and all of a sudden the Browns went empty, put Kareem Hunt out wide, and he's matched up against Marlon Humphrey. 1, Marlon Humphrey couldn't really cover him, and 2, it just opened up everything else just because of the rules of their defense, or the playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, similar deal. They go empty. You end up with Robert Spillane trying to cover Jarvis Landry, and even Jarvis Landry's fast enough to win that matchup, and just cook them over and over and over again. And that's how you that's how you create advantages. That's how you win football games. And in neither of those seasons did the Browns have otherworldly personnel. They just had they knew how to play their strengths. They knew how to cause defense problem. Now, the big thing that has changed is defenses have gotten way better in the last couple of years, and that is a challenge for all teams. But it is now becoming a challenge for these offenses to now deal with what have become more imposing defenses. Obviously, the Browns defense is hoping to be one of them, but like it has been a slog for these offenses the last couple of years, and I don't expect that to change.
All right, this next you're watching the React. That's Pete Smith. My name is Brad Ward. If you haven't hit that like button yet, make sure you go do it right now, and make sure it's working, and hit it a couple times. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel as we push for 10,000 subscribers. We're only a couple hundred away. We appreciate you clicking that button, hit the notification bell so you know every time we go live. We'll have a special free agency kickoff show on Monday night, along with our regular the 21st, along with our regular scheduled programming all week long as training camp kicks off, as you said what rookies report in 10 days. Lance Riesland this week made a crazy comparison, a fun comparison about our Kent State's own Luke Floria and Julian Edelman. Quite the comp.
Huh. That's not. There's a Browns receiver that I think could potentially be that, but it's not him. Or at least that's not who I would look at.
Keyshawn?
No. Keyshawn Johnson is a much bigger, different type of dude. No, it's Cade McDonald. Because Cade McDonald. So the Wes Welker, who's the other one that the Patriots had for a minute?
Welker, Edelman. There's another one too. Yeah.
The one who spent time with the Dolphins for a minute. So at their base,
Amendola.
Yes.
Thanks, Serge.
At their base, beyond being just white, which is a common theme in these comparisons, they are super strong. These are guys who, like, coming out, like Wes Welker was a monster in the weight room, and had excellent body control and core strength and those type of things.
So was Edelman.
As did Edelman, although Edelman was obviously a quarterback in college, whereas Wes Welker was a receiver the whole way at Texas Tech and all that stuff. Cade McDonald, off the top of my head, I think he was a 6'7", 5'3" cone guy, which suggests excellent body control and core strength. He is 5'10", 196 pounds. Again, suggests strength. And then the other thing that suggests he's been in the weight room quite a bit, even though it's not a great, necessarily the best indicator, is he put up something like 22 bench reps, which, again, 5'10", 196 as a receiver is a good number. So in terms of, like, the things that I would look for and say, physically, these sort of add up to what you can get to, he's that guy. And then let's skip from the measurables the testing measurables, and we go to the tape. I see a guy who can stop and cut on a dime, can stop and start really, really well. And then there are times either going up for 50-50 balls, he just is too strong for the opponent and is able to go up and go through them to make plays, or guys are trying to tackle him and he can just overpower them and run through arm tackles. So I'm not going to tell you that he is Julian Edelman or Wes Welker, insert white slot receiver. But I would say that if there's a guy who has a good chance, or the best chance of sort of becoming that guy, it is Cade McDonald. He has all those traits. You see it on tape, even though there's not, there's a reason he went undrafted. His production is minimal. But I look at those things and I sit there and go, okay, based on that, based on what I've watched with his Miami of Ohio tape, and then the way he's winning, again, unpadded, that could change things. The way he won in the rookie camp and then mini camp stuff, I see why he was successful. It didn't feel like you could sort of sit there and go, based off of just the rookie mini camp and then the OTA stuff, you could sit there and go, this is a fluke. That he was just that he's perfectly set up to dominate those type of practices. But again, when I go to the tape, I see, and again, it's largely against MAC competition, so that you do have some questions there. But I see the traits that sit there and go, okay, I can see where this would work in the NFL. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. I still don't think I'm certainly not projecting him to be on the 53-man roster at this point. I have no idea who's going to make this team a wide receiver beyond basically Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. But still, that skill set, I see it more from Cade McDonald.
Okay. It's interesting because he wrote a whole column and did a whole film breakdown on Floria being that guy, right? He thinks that he's seen that potential from him. Mm-hmm. Now he's 5'8".
He's 5'8", yes, and he's lighter.
179.
So he's 20 pounds almost 20 pounds lighter than McDonald, 2 inches shorter. Not that he 5'8", 179 is not all that small, but compare that to Dylan Sampson, which is again one of the reasons I think Dylan Sampson is really intriguing for this option.
Yeah,
he's got 21 pounds on Luke Flourier.
Right.
We'll see.
Hold on, we got a Chantel has got something to say here. I thought Stefanski's supposed to be the QB guru, needs to prove it, develop these rookies for me to believe it. Okay. Well, as Pete laid out earlier, he's had success with multiple average to middling quarterbacks and gotten the best performances of their careers out of many of them. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see these quarterbacks come along, but they also have to have it as well. But yeah, no, he is a QB guru. I think he's fantastic with quarterbacks, and I think he's a great coach. So,
yeah, I mean, nothing would be better than the Browns being able to get one of these guys to be great.
Yeah,
whether it's Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, I don't care. If one of them is going to be the answer, more power to him. But I'm certainly not going to say that if those two aren't the answer. And again, timeline is a factor here. If let's say that Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders is going to figure it out in year 3, the Browns can't wait for that in terms of when they're going to attack again at the quarterback position. They're going to go next year. That is why I think it's in many ways unrealistic for these guys to show enough. But look, if you can get that Jaden Daniels-like impact, if you can get Russell Wilson like impact in year 1, great. But those are rare instances that those type of things happen, especially for non-first-round picks. So you got a third-round pick, and even if you think Shedeur Sanders was higher than that, he ended up in the 5th round for a reason. I still would have – second round is where I had him. If these guys can't do it in year 1, I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh, Kevin Stefanski's a failure at developing the quarterback position." Now, what will happen, one way or the other, is if the quarterback they pick next year can't do it, then that's going to be the end of Kevin Stefanski, unless one of these guys then comes out and has massive success. But whether it's some combination of these quarterbacks and the guy that's almost certainly going to be drafted next year has to work, or it's going to be somebody else coaching this team.
Thanks for the $5, Chantel. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you watching. All right, here we go. Lance Riesland on why Luke Florio, or if you want to, sub Cade McDonald in there, because
now me and Lance Riesland officially have beef. I'm Cade McDonald. He can be Luke Florio.
All covering the high school football games and analysts there, and he joins us right now. Lance, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. Now, I'm going to get to Kenny Pickett and a couple other things here in just a moment, but could one position group be better than we think? Could that be the wide receiver position group? You had a very interesting post yesterday where Luke Flourier, that's how you say his last name, right? I don't want to be disrespectful to the young man, is being compared to Julian Edelman. Explain.
Well, he's not Julian Edelman, right? But what the Browns lack that easy yards guy. And I've said it for years. The Browns have to go right now, since Kevin Stefanski's actually been here, they have to go 10 to 12 plays every single time. And you constantly hear they're undisciplined last year. And really, for me, it's not being undisciplined on offense. It's that you're on the field too long. And if you have to go 10 to 12 plays, 10, 15 plays, regardless of what level you are, it's hard not to have mistakes. It's hard not to have defenses make plays against you. So they need an easy yards guy. Now, he's a guy that can work against safeties. He's a guy that can work against linebackers. He's sudden, he's twitchy. He's kind of got an edge to him. He reminds you, it's the traits, right? It's the ability to work inside. It's his ability to run those option routes, ability to be extended run game, so you don't have to block everybody in the run game. You can throw some RPOs to him. He can help you on special teams. He can also help you in getting ready for those slot receivers that you're going to see this year, the St. Browns, people like that. So there's things that he can do with the lack of depth the Browns have at receiver and the lack of depth they have with what his skill set is. I think he's a guy who has a chance to make the team because he brings an element of sudden and twitchiness, and Browns got to win first down, and they got to stay out of those second, third long situations to protect that quarterback, whoever that may be.
Had they had that in theory with any of the other wide receivers they had attempted to take? Granted, again, they're always taking receivers, in the third round, the fourth round, and beyond. But was there anybody else they had maybe thought over the years that could fill the role you're talking
Rashard
about?
Higgins.
Jamari
Well, if you look
Thrash.
back, Jarvis Landry's a guy that was really good at that, right? He was undersized, wasn't outright straight line speed, but he could work in the slot. He had
you're
enough
really gonna
speed, football
beef with
speed, I
him.
like to say. He did a lot
Outright
of really good
speed.
things. The Browns receiver-wise kind of reminds me, they have like a body type they like, right? Long arms. They've done really good. Seth Tillman, I think, can be really good. I am high on him if he can stay healthy. That body type, right? The guy who's an outside one guy, can stretch it vertically, run the comebacks, the digs, things like that. But they have not had a lot of those guys inside who are good in a phone booth, right? Guys who can beat you in area, work out against the linebacker, really good at understanding coverage and leverage and angles and things like that. That's something they haven't had. They've had some really good outside guys, even Donovan Peoples-Jones. If you look at that body type, vertical guy, not always good in a small space. That's what really helps a quarterback, right? Guys who can find areas. You don't have to do a lot. You don't have to throw it a long way. The coverage underneath is easier to read sometimes than the coverage over the top. So
Who was their last good slot receiver?
Jarvis Landry's been the best one, and part of that's because they've tried to manufacture an offense that doesn't use that type of guy. They want the tight ends to be that guy. And then the other guy who was theoretically going to be in that mix was David Bell as more of a power slot, not this style. This style is obviously smaller and quicker. But yeah, Jarvis Landry, I think Rashard Higgins had some of those characteristics as well, but it's not something the Browns have been like looking for because they've used David Njoku for that type of stuff. And then they had Harrison Bryant. Harold Fannin can theoretically do some of those things.
Doesn't Jamari Thrash fit that role, that mold?
Not really. To me, I think he's more of an outside guy. His inside, he can do inside stuff, but I don't think he's a guy you're going to sit there and go run 3 yards and turn around type thing.
Oh, really? He's so
I think
small,
he's a little bit more of an intermediate threat that can run good route. I mean, I think his best stuff is largely been on the outside, but I think some of that stuff will translate. I just don't know if it's going to translate in the way that sort of the Landry style, if you're looking at that.
Yeah, the stuff the guys they had, run that stuff was like Austin Hooper, right? Like, I mean, he would run 3 yards, catch it, and fall on the ground.
One of the things I despised about the Jarvis Landry experience was they had 5 guys that seemed to work in this one area of the field.
Yeah,
and it just to me was clogging everything up. They didn't have the whether it was vertical elements, and they were using guys like Kadero Hodge. They obviously were able to get lucky with Donovan Peoples-Jones for a little while, but it just felt like so much of what the Browns were doing, particularly in 2021, was just clogged up areas of the field as opposed to creating better spacing over the entire field.
Yeah.
No, they haven't had a lot of guys. Last guy that I think they had was Jarvis Landry, who was very, very good at it.
Do you think it matters in that regard who the quarterback is for how good any of the young receivers can be? Like, obviously, the last few years, they were building around an offense that was supposed to be compatible with a very different type of quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Now they've kind of gone in another direction, although they've got 4 different quarterbacks to choose from now. Do you think that matters, or do you think these guys can stand out at wide receiver regardless of who is the signal caller?
Well, the receiver position is different now, right? Because you're not in 11 personnel as much as you've been, right? You're not a spread team. You're not asking those offensive line to drop back and pass protect with a true quarterback in the pocket. Now you're involving the run game in the pass game, which means you're going to do a lot of play action. Play action really helps those offensive linemen because those defensive linemen have to kind of respect the run first. So the receiver position, don't have to be as deep or as talented as long as you have some guys who can go over the top, guys can sit in zone, because if you can win on first down and run the ball, you dictate. So if you get the 2nd and 5, you can dictate what the defense has in the game. Then you get less people covering. Then you get less underneath coverage. Then you can take play action shots over the top. You kind of simplify it for the quarterback if you can win on first down and run the ball and be physical. Because remember, that defense has to work on physicality all week. We're playing the Browns. If you think about a couple years ago with Chubb, we're playing the Browns. We got to work on that physicality. We got to work against power and counter and pin and pull. You're not worried so much about the pass game. When you're facing Deshaun Watson, the theory was we got to cover the pass, right? And run game is the quarterback's best friend. It's cliche, but it's really true, and it can really help a young quarterback or a transitioning quarterback if you can win on first down and be in control on second and third down.
Run game has struggled over the last couple of years. Do you have to have a respected run game for play action to really work?
It's interesting, right? You got to be committed to the run, and sometimes you will be successful with it, but sometimes you face guys you can't block. But it's the theory of what is that? For me, it's always about what is the other team working at. And even at the high school level, there's 2 work days, right? So for us in high school, we really worked hard and hit each other on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. What do we want the defense to work on? So whether we're running the ball successfully or not, what are they trying to stop? And whether they say to you, we're going to stop the run, and they do stop the run, that's still setting up your play action. So obviously you got to have some success in the run game, but more importantly, you got to be committed to your identity. You got to say, we're going to run the ball. If you look back, everybody talks about, we got to get less defenders in the box. There was times when Browns didn't care what you did. You put 8, 9 in the box, they didn't care. They're going to run it at you. And that's an identity, and that's the identity that a defensive coordinator has to kind of work on during the week. So it's more.
It's interesting that Stefanski said, now I get his point. You obviously, it's more effective if that's your identity or you've had success in the running game. But when Stefanski was asked on a podcast he went on with on Barstool a couple years ago, what was that podcast?
Bussin' with the Boys?
No. The one with PFT commenter. What's his name? Anyways, they asked him if you had to be able to run. Do you remember that? They asked him.
I don't know the name of it. Big Cat and PFT commenter.
Yeah, Big Cat. Yeah. They asked him if. Pardon my take. If they asked him if you had to be able to run the football for play action to work, and he was like, "No, that's a myth. You don't need to be able to run the ball at all for it to work."
True, but it helps.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was admitting. Yeah, obviously it can be more effective, but you're still always going to get some reaction if you know what I mean, or it can work without an effective run game.
Well, I mean, there's a point where it stops working. Look, if it's 3rd and 12 and you're giving a fake to the running back and I'm a linebacker, sure. I don't care. Like, okay, yeah. I'll get to my pass drop, and if you actually do hand it off, I'll go corral him. If it's, that's where I think there is a credibility element that has to be involved with it. But
within common sense, I mean,
yeah, like 2nd and 5,
yeah,
they got to take their run steps. I mean, that's just how it's going to go. So, yeah.
All right. Let's move on.
So, Julian Edelman coming out of college, 5'10" and 3/8, 195, ran a 4.52. Cade McDonald, 5'10", exactly, 196, 4.58, 40, a little bit slower. Julian Edelman, 14 bench reps, though he's coming off an arm injury. Vertical, 36.5, broad jump, 10 foot 3, a little bit more explosive than Cade McDonald, 22 bench reps, 33-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump. And then the area where Julian Edelman was legitimately special, 3.92 shuttle and 6.62 3-cone.
Yeah.
For McDonald, 4.13 shuttle, which is good, not great, and then 3-cone, 6.75, which is very, very good. Compare that to Luke Flourier, 5'8" and a quarter, 179, 4.5, 240, which is the same. Bench reps the same. Vertical 34, 9'5" broad jump, which is not very good. 4.19 shuttle, which is fine, and then 6.95 3-cone. Fine, but not great. Maybe it worked. Maybe it translates better on the field. But if I was trying to make an athletic comp between the two, I'm going with my man Cade McDonald. So we have beef. I have beef with Lance Ryland. I'm betting.
Who has looked better though in underwear so far?
Cade McDonald.
No, come on,
yes,
really?
He was the best.
No way.
he was the best guy in the rookie minicamp, and then at one point he was one of Zach Jackson's camper of the day for one of the OTA days.
Gracious.
That's
Crown him right now.
Camper of the day for one of the
Camper
OTAs
of the
that he was
day.
there for. Look, here's what I will say. They do the same thing. They both stop and start, are able to work in that slot, find holes in the defense. Cade McDonald's a little bit bigger. The other element, and obviously he doesn't have the same skill set, but this is where I sort of look at Dylan Sampson and go, if Dylan Sampson is good enough, he's not going to be able to run the routes that these guys are running, but does he sort of become a more compelling option to put on the field?
Yeah.
Is he as a jet player, he as a manufactured touch guy, he is a threat, more appealing to put on the field than a Luke Flourier or Cade McDonald? To be determined. Obviously, if one of these guys can get open and be a quarterback's best friend, which so far from my view has been Cade McDonald, then great. That would be fantastic, and they make the team and they find a role. But we'll see. I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I mean, the natural comparison with Luke Flourier being Edelman is they're both Kent State guys,
Right.
who do similar things. But like here again, Cade McDonald, interesting. Now, the one thing that works in Flourier's favor is he was simply more productive in college. So he's got that, and that's not insignificant. He did it more at the college level. So that may be part of the reason that Lance Ryland sort of went with that one wrongly.
Yeah, I'm just joking around. I don't have any skin in the game. Either one, if either one of them works out as that guy, that's great. But I do agree, the physical comp wise, you're right. Cade McDonald fits better. I don't know who's a better receiver though. I don't know. We can't.
We're about to find out. I mean, the padded element's so big. The Browns, and obviously they can't just beat up on third and fourth stringers at that point. They've got to actually be able to get in there and succeed against first team. And, just looking at again, they're in shorts and stuff, but you look at the Browns deep, like the ones or the guys who are in the mix for the ones, the Browns defense is big. It'll be curious to see if these guys don't just sort of get, wiped out by the physicality of those guys. But having said that, can Cade McDonald be a guy who gives somebody like Martin Emerson fits? He absolutely could. But they've got to be able to survive and not just get absolutely destroyed by these guys when they're potentially now taking contact.
Yeah, with the exception of his camper of the day, Glory, I can't argue with you.
Yeah, I mean, that is the stat of record.
All right. This should be good. All right. It's that time, folks.
Oh, God.
Is it? Do you want to skip this portion tonight? I got other stuff we can go
No,
to.
you can put it on. It's just, is it going to be another half-assed argument where Shelby Harris and Ethan Posick aren't even free agents listed on a list of free agents just to smear the GM of the football team? Is that where we're going? Or guys who were paid $900K that, got sick and whatever? I'm here for it.
Your next topic here, while Bull
how much more effort was put into
how
that.
they are not hitting over 300. It's brought to you by Game Time. If you decided at the last minute to head to the ball, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game for $20 off.
All right.
So 10 years. How many times do you think Tony Gwynn struck out in the 1990s? Now, to put it into perspective,
it's in the teens.
Aaron Judge, who's the best hitter in baseball, for this decade, he'll probably strike out 10.
I think it's
1,000, 2,000 times. At least over 16, 1,700.
I'm saying it's 14.
Gwynn over 10 years.
10 years?
Say,
213.
no, I would say 50, 45 to 50.
Oh, you went too far.
I thought 4 or 5 a year.
He had 188 strikeouts. Now that doesn't seem that great because you said such a low number, but
I mean, that's still pretty great. It's 18 a year.
That's crazy.
20 a year.
It's 19 a year.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of
Bobby Jinx died.
Crazy things that catch your eyes, like eye-popping stats. G. Bush put this tweet out over the weekend that caught my eye. G. Bush said, Shador turns heads with must-see viral training videos.
Nobody does headlines better than G. Bush.
He is the king of headlines. And then this was the video that G was referring to. So, G, I'm going to play the video, and I want you to explain to the guys what you thought about this particular training video. Was eye-catching and turned your head. So the floor is yours, G. What's up with this video?
Hey, man, listen. So first of all, I feel like, shout out to Earl, because he's seen this a little bit. He was with my man Cecil Shorts. It looks like he done tweaked his throwing motion a little bit. It looks like he's already accurate, but it looks like he's getting a little more velocity on these footballs, moving around. But more than that, I like that one right there. That was a laser. That was a laser. He looking crisp out there. But more than anything, you know what I liked? He had the brown helmet on. He could have wore any helmet he wanted to in the world.
Oh my God, he went Dustin Fox.
Buffalo helmet. He could have been out there and just some. He
did the Dustin Fox thing. I cannot believe he did this.
He gets us.
Dustin Fox, Johnny Manziel was hungover at his pro day, as were his receivers. And he put on shoulder pads to the stupid thing. One, he was trying to hide how short he was, which I called out in real time. And famously, Dustin Fox, at that point in time, saw him in the shoulder pads and said, game changer. Him putting on the shoulder pads was a game changer. And, you know, I got nothing against Dustin Fox. It's just, this is one of those hilarious moments where you're just like, come on, man. It completely fabricated for this whole event. And you bought it. Him putting on that Browns helmet, who cares? Who cares if he trains in a helmet or not? Like, okay. Listen, come up to the high school tomorrow. We'll be in helmets. Like,
yeah.
What do you want? Like, this type of stuff is just insane to me that you fall for this crap every time. And it means nothing. If he can't play dead, it's not going to change whether he had a helmet on. And if he's great, it's not because he had a helmet on. Like, this stuff is crap. And then look, I got nothing against these training videos. They're fine, whatever. But they pick the best moments and like shoot them at these great angles. The Browns training camp people do this every year, and it looks great. The production value on these, where they like to throw the ball right into the camera and the guy makes the catch, they look tremendous. It's also shot at such an angle where you can't see anything. So you have it looks super heroic. I mean,
they made Deshaun Watson look good for two years. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it's all, you know, the NFL films thing. Yeah. And NFL films make these guys look super heroic because they're shooting the upward angle from low and making them look like giants and all these other things. You make these guys look great, but it's like, great, man. Like, more power to him. I'm happy he's working. I'm hoping it's helping him with the velocity and stuff, because that's a legitimate issue, in addition to just getting his weight going in the right direction and avoiding those other things. But if you're sitting here and you're watching this and you're sitting here go, this changes my view of anything.
Right.
Listen, Elijah Moore is the best receiver in the NFL based on his training videos, because he's a psycho in terms of training. He's like 3-a-days guy, and his videos are unbelievable. But, you know, we put on the games, and like, I like Elijah Moore. I wish he was still here. But then he catches the ball and he can turn into a complete spaz, backing up and doing all kinds of weird cockamamie shit with the ball in his hands. And you sit there and go,
at least he caught the ball. Yeah. Got open. Anyways, here would be my point on this thing, right? Like, and I get it. And Go Bucks makes a good point in the chat. Shador been doing the same thing since JSU. Yes, his whole life has been videotaped like this, right? Like, and everything has been put on camera since day one. Right? Probably since he first threw a football all the way through middle school.
He was on a reality show when he was 13.
Hold on. Let me finish. And I'm saying my point is, at this point, it doesn't matter. You tell me that there's any quarterback out there that's not working out every day right now. Any rookie quarterback that's not working out every day right now in preparation to go back to training camp. They all are. I guarantee you that the same thing is going on with every rookie quarterback in the NFL right now. It's just not being videotaped and put out on their Instagram. Well, some of them are. But
yeah, Kenny Pickett's are. Tony Rasiopi, or however you pronounce his name, is big on filming his stuff. Yeah, I mean, and particularly for the Browns, you've created this situation with 4 quarterbacks. Those 3 guys, Kenny Pickett, Shador, and Dylan Gabriel, are all have extra incentive to work every day. And as I've talked about, for Shador, this is a huge opportunity for him to catch up in terms of mastering the offense, being able to come back. Because if he has a super productive month and he comes back and he has a really good handle on the offense and being able to call it from the huddle and do these things and put guys in the right position and see it and start executing, then now we're talking. Now he's in the competition. Now he's in the position to start making his case to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So more power to him. But yes, this is about hype. This is about all this other stuff. And one guy can.
Which is fine.
Yes.
I mean, Cam Ward did the same thing,
Yes.
and Pickett. I mean, he's not the only one, which is fine. But let's just not say just because short. What's his name? Shorty is not putting out videos doesn't mean he's not working hard. Dylan Gabriel.
Well, again, he cited the helmet. Come on.
Well,
he cited the helmet.
Yeah.
I mean, get out of here. This is just fan service. And look,
Cam Ward was wearing his helmet too, I believe.
George Sanders is extremely smart when it comes to branding himself and putting out stuff that's going to get engagement and people excited, and more power to him. I'm rooting for this because Shador Sanders is legitimately fun. He is fun. If he's great, he's going to be super fun for this team. And God knows this team could use it. But no, I don't care about him posting a training video. And I certainly don't care about him posting a training video where he's wearing a Browns helmet and that being the reason he's going to be great. I've seen any number of training videos.
Did you actually watch the video, the real video?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
Just what I saw here.
Oh, okay. Because I was actually going to ask you to see if you had noticed any difference in his mechanics.
No, not enough that's going to change anything. I think.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that they're working on.
Yes,
things,
I mean,
you know what I mean.
There are tweaks that they could be making. Unless I get deep into it and sort of go side by side and some of these other things, I may not notice it. May be subtle enough that it's going to be. I said when they sort of came out of camp, one of the things that these guys are doing, and it may not be like a true change in their mechanics, but it may be just, Kevin Stefanski sort of talked about this. It's like, it may be, hey, you've taken your drop this way. Have you ever thought about doing it this way? Or maybe this is how we'd like you to do it if this is a good fit for you. And maybe they determined it is a good fit for them, and now they want to try to master it. Beyond just, hey, now I've got the playbook. I know what types of throws I need to make so I can work on those specific throws, that specific footwork, those specific angles to try to get yourself better and better. But given the criticisms of Sanders and his ability to drive the football, it wouldn't shock me at all if they're doing some slight things to try to help him generate more power quickly, help him generate more velocity. Because if he can do that, and I think this is more like, there are some subtle things they can do mechanically. I do think this is something that's going to be more of a couple years of process in doing, because when you're a professional and you can really take the time and really build up your arm strength, I would say Tom Brady and Drew Brees is 2 guys who noticeably got stronger. Drew Brees in particular, after his shoulder surgery, got much stronger. That now you take a quarterback who can already make an incredible array of throws. He's super gifted in the amount of throws, the style of throws, and just the tools in his toolbox from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And you add in what would be a more threatening level of arm strength. Now you're sitting there going, okay,
doesn't he have a big enough arm though? Hasn't he proven that he has a big enough arm to make all the throws fine?
No. Insofar as Shador Sanders in the blizzard against the Steelers, do you feel comfortable with it, or are you sitting there going, I don't know?
From what I've watched, I feel like he has plenty of arm.
Because Jameis Winston's got a big arm, and there were still some throws that you're just fighting.
anybody in a freaking
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, welcome to Cleveland. Now, I can appreciate Deontay Johnson's pro-dome agenda, but we're not there yet. So we're gonna have to deal with it now. And most of this with Sanders is the stuff where he's drifting backwards. That's where he just kills his own throwing power. He's making throws way longer than they need to be, and just they're not going to work. If he eliminates that and he's playing forward, he's going to look much stronger. But he's not Cam Ward. He's never going to be Cam Ward. But if he can get a little bit stronger over the next couple of years and prove that he's an NFL caliber quarterback, he gets really interesting real fast.
Yeah. I'm not saying he has a Cam Ward's arm. I'm just saying.
No,
I think
you do. That
dude's
got a cannon.
He does have a cannon.
You had to put a helmet on. You know what? I think that was dope. You're like, yeah, you listen. I think he's locked in. I think he's realizing, like, look, he's thinking more long term. A lot of times, like, we look at it and people's like, look, hey, is he going to start day one? Is he going to start this week? Going to start next week? How many games he going to start? I just feel like it's dope because he got the Browns helmet on. He in Florida. It's almost like I explained it to McNuggets. It's like, the first time you go off to college somewhere and you come back and you playing a pickup game and you got your team gear on. You're around the fellas. You're hanging out. And you like, yeah. This is what we be doing over here. This is the way we be rolling. He just representing the city. So to me, I was like, now I did see Cam Ward. Cam Ward went back to Miami and he had his helmet on for the Tennessee Titans. But I just think it just shows that, like, he's thinking of this more long term. He's thinking of it being more comfortable in his skin, coming out being like, hey, look, I'm going to work on my game. I could be doing a lot of other things right now. I could be running around drag racing or doing whatever I need to do or being buying clothes or something. But a couple of days before we're ready to lock and load, I think it's dope that he's out there in the middle of the night in the rain, throwing the football, working on his game with the Browns helmet on, letting people know I'm out here representing for the whole city. I'm representing. I like the fact that he's energetically proud to have the Browns helmet on. We talk about it a lot of times about people that want to be here.
What are we saying right now?
Oh, we want guys that want to be here. We want guys like he could have did this and had no helmet on. I like the fact that he's saying, listen, y'all get used to the Cleveland Browns and you get used to me wearing this helmet because the Browns ain't the old Browns no more. We about to make the Browns look nice. We about to swag these Browns out. And I just like the fact that he was out there putting that work in, representing the city. So for me, I don't think he's looking at it like, oh, if I don't start week 1, it's some travesty. If I don't start week 5 or 6. I think he out there just comfortable and being like, man, listen, I'm out here just putting work in and I'm gonna get my opportunity. But believe me, even if you were a detractor, that's cool. I'm gonna win people over. But I'm still a Cleveland Brown. That's what I liked about it.
He's still talking.
Jason?
He has said nothing.
Can't do it.
Come on.
I can't get excited over a video.
There you go.
No.
It's
listen, 3 dudes throwing against air.
And man, it was beautiful, man. You see him drop back.
There's nothing negative about it.
You see the helmet?
I'm not.
Putting that work in,
what you're saying about wearing the Browns helmet. That's fine. And that's good. If it gets you excited, good. That's good.
Yeah.
We all listen. Everybody wants Shedeur Sanders to play well, or whoever plays with the Browns quarterback. That's a reality. If you're not rooting for the team. If you don't want them to play well, there should be no agendas when it comes to anything. Everybody should look at it fairly. I'm not going to get excited.
No
about
agendas. Did you just hear that?
I do think I will say. Listen, when I see Deshaun Watson, when he was still on, a viable player, and I would see him doing dancing videos, it would annoy me. So I'm like, okay, I like that he's practicing. That's good. He should be. That's a positive.
It doesn't piss me off.
Again, I got nothing negative to say. I'm just not going to get excited about it. And you know what? It is smart. I don't know if he did this on purpose. He should practice in the rain a lot because there's bad weather here. He should try to practice in bad weather. I mean, you can't get, you'd have to go to like Alaska to practice in snow right now. But practicing in the rain is good because you're going to have rainy, windy, crappy conditions here.
Hey, you know what? I will say about what I'll say about it, Jason. I don't know. I majored in marketing.
LaSalle High School.
I mean,
shorts. I like
this guy. This guy is a marketing savant.
This certainly is
because the fact that he was like, listen, They said everything. We always talk about that 4th of July weekend, right? People want to get away. People in the media get away. He's like, oh no. Y'all not gonna forget about me. I'm gonna drop this. He's wearing lime green shorts, the cutoff with the Browns helmet with the visor, and then guess what?
Gee, it's the one sleeve.
What does the lime green have anything to do with it?
Nothing. None of this has to do with
He cut
anything.
off, too.
Yes, the onesie. And he's out there, and look, these angles. You saw they set in the camera. These angles just make it look like it's effortlessly. Like, look, he's looking step that one right there. You're like, oh my gosh, that's Patrick Mahomes.
That's true.
That look like Mahomes. Look how you say, yeah, we're gonna get that angle like that. That's how we're gonna roll with that. He was in there cutting this up. They was like, hey, we're gonna, and this is gonna look great.
Dude, I can't. That's enough.
It's ridiculous. Look, professional athlete practices his sport. More than 11. Like, this is the expectation. He is not 20. He's not 20 years old. He's practically 24. Like, don't baby him. This is the part. Like, I like Sugar Sanders. I continue to say this. He's fun.
He is.
Like, if he's going to be good for this team, he's going to be a lot of fun for a whole lot of people who desperately need it. After watching Deshaun Watson just suck the life out of everything near him,
Yep.
Potted plants nearby would just wilt at his presence. But like, this is, you go too far when you put on this production and you're trying to like predict his life out for 5 years, talking about the grind and all this other stuff. He's a practically 24-year-old dude trying to make it in the NFL. He's a 5th-round pick. Like, yeah, good. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what all these guys are doing. I mean, I've seen Quinshon Judkins training videos as well, and his are really impressive in terms of what they're asking him to do in terms with the athleticism. But like, does anybody sit there and go, man, when Nick Chubb was grinding away in his high school dungeon of a gym, we're just going, this old school aesthetic where you're sitting there and you're going, man, he looks like a hardcore dude. Is anybody sitting there mad that he didn't have Browns gear on to do it? Or maybe he should have worn a helmet when he was squatting 1,000,000 pounds. Like, yeah, look, there's value in practicing with a helmet. Great. I'm not going to take anything away from what you were saying, but when it becomes Johnny Manziel game changer shoulder pads. When you are sitting there and you're commenting on going, that's Patrick Mahomes. Like, what are we doing here? Show me he's Patrick Mahomes in pads. Show me he's Patrick Mahomes in against the Browns defense. Because if he's those things, we're cooking, and I will give him all the props in the world. Everybody else will. But like, I agree with the point. If it gets you excited, more power to you. Like, that's the point. He's good at that stuff. He is genuinely good at marketing himself. He's genuinely good.
That's perfectly fine.
All that's great. But don't try to then
it doesn't make it
turn it into some meaningful gesture about how it's going to pretend greatness, because he could train for an hour in the rain, tape it on video, and then spend the rest of the week dicking off and doing nothing.
Right.
Hopefully that's an indication that he is crushing it this whole way. He's taking this whole month seriously, post drag racing. And is going to be ready for camp and is going to be ready to make it happen. Because if he can do those things, then we're talking. Then we're talking about guys who are crushing it. Him dominating in the rain against air. The Browns don't play air this year. And even if they did, I'm not confident in them at this point. So I need them to do more than just beat up air.
I wish they had air on their schedule this year. That'd be nice. A nice break. All right, folks.
The closest thing to it, unless they fix that.
All right. Thank you guys for watching our show tonight. This is the React. That's Pete Smith. I'm Brad Ward. And I appreciate you guys all being here and hanging out with us for the length of this show. And hanging out with us. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, get over to the obr.com and read all of the work being done over there. Make sure you do that. We've got you covered all the way. till the end of time. But up and through the 10 days from now, when rookies report to minicamp, we will have a training camp special on the 21st Monday night, training camp kickoff show. So join us then. We'll get together on here and talk about all the fun that is going to happen then. Any parting words tonight, Pete?
No, I mean, just that, look, when the 18th shows up and apparently a presence is going to march in with neon green shorts and his helmet walking into the building, then it's time to go. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the takeover.
Let's do the real thing. Let's do the real thing. That's what we want, right? Thank you guys very much. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Broken Arrow, Chantel, McClothan. Appreciate you guys all being here. Everybody else, Go Bucks that was here tonight. Thanks for hanging out. Hang around for Garage Beers next with Michael Keefe and the boys. Go get your cold one and be ready to hang out with them next, as they'll take you through everything Cleveland sports. With that, for Pete Smith, my name is Brad Ward. We are out.